Hey guys, welcome back to Hot for Health. On this episode, it's going to be me sharing my birth story and hoping that I can relate to some of you guys out there. I want to point out that this is my experience and every single birth is completely different from the next, from person to person, birth to birth. So again, this is strictly just my experience, what I went through, and hopefully it can give some insight on those who are expecting or want to know more or want to hear just simply about other people's experiences. So let's jump right in. So I wanted to share a little bit about my pregnancy leading up to my birth with my daughter. So when I was 25, I found out I was pregnant. I didn't really think much about it. I couldn't remember when I was supposed to get my period, but I had an idea of the time frame and I was like, okay, I'm definitely late. So that's when I decided I'll just pick up a pregnancy stick and, just take it kind of just for shits and gigs, just to see if I'm pregnant or not. But I didn't think I was. I didn't really think much of it. So when I did see that it was positive, I was definitely shocked. But also at the same time, because her father and I we were not trying for a child at that time because I was 25. We were not married. It wasn't an unexpected pregnancy, but I had messed up some of my birth control that month or the month prior. So I was surprised, but not that surprised, but definitely needed some adjustments, like adjusting time, just to kind of get used to the idea and make it more surreal that I was in fact pregnant. From there, during my first trimester, the symptoms that I was very lucky in the sense that I didn't have morning sickness really. Sometimes I would feel a little woozy throughout the day, but nothing that I needed to throw up. I was exhausted. I was so exhausted. I would take hour-long naps, which I never napped before. Now I nap a lot, but I took naps, so that was unusual for me. I definitely had more sensitivity in my nipples, and so that was definitely one of the symptoms of me being pregnant in the first trimester. But the biggest thing was definitely exhaustion, and then also the moment I became hungry, I knew I needed to get something immediately to eat or I would become very nauseous. So that was another symptom that I had during the first trimester. As soon as the first trimester was over, at the 12-week mark or 13-week mark, whatever, I immediately felt like I had gained all my energy back. I was not exhausted anymore and I felt kind of normal and stable. It probably has to do with all the hormone changes, but I felt good. I felt like I had that pregnancy glow. I felt my first kick flutter when I was about 18 weeks. It was like a flutter. So those little kicks will feel like almost like little gas bubbles in your belly. And when you're feeling those more frequently, just know that's the baby kicking, which was really cool to feel. Then around the 20th week, 22nd week of pregnancy, I noticed my appetite definitely increased. I was constantly hungry. I was eating very well as well during the first and second trimester. I was trying to be as good as I could. But I will say, towards the end of the second trimester, I definitely started craving way more sweets. And I did give in to my cravings. Third trimester, totally ate a bunch of sweets. As I've mentioned in the first podcast, I love sugar. I do. I'm like addicted to sugar. It's bad. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to find alternative, healthier options to having a sweet treat. But anyways, during my second to third trimester, I was definitely eating a lot of sweets. Specifically, I love eclairs. I love chocolate cake. I love those kind of sweets. Not really the candy stuff, but cakes, brownies, all that. It also happened to be my birthday a month before I actually gave birth to my daughter. So I was getting cheesecakes, eclairs, cakes from everybody saying, oh, it's fine. You're just pregnant. But I knew I shouldn't be eating this, but my cravings were so bad, I would actually throw out the cheesecake. I threw out the cheesecake. It was in a plastic baggie. Threw out the whole cheesecake in the outside garbage. And then later, I'm guilty for this. Later went into the garbage and I did eat the cheesecake out of the garbage. I know, it's shameful and I wish I hadn't, but it was covered with a plastic baggie, but I did do that. So that was my bad. Outside of that, there were really no weird cravings. I did, in my third trimester, I absolutely craved navel oranges. My dad actually brought back oranges from Florida because my parents have a condo in Naples. He brought me a little carry-on full of navel oranges, which was very sweet because I just craved them constantly my third trimester. So I ate a lot of navel oranges as well. Overall, my pregnancy experience was very easy. I can't complain. I definitely had the round ligament pain starting in the second trimester that went into the third trimester. I was uncomfortable sleeping more in the third trimester. I will say the third trimester, I did not enjoy it. I didn't really enjoy being pregnant. Second trimester was okay. Didn't really enjoy being pregnant. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think in my opinion, it's not like this wonderful experience for me personally. Your hormones are going through so much change. Your body's going through so much change. Mentally, you're going through so much. So it's just a lot going on, and you're exhausted, especially during the first and third trimester because you're not getting good sleep. One thing I would do differently is definitely get a pregnancy pillow. I highly recommend that because I had about 10 different pillows stacked up. I don't know why I didn't just invest in a pregnancy pillow because that probably would have made my sleeps a lot better. My belly in the third trimester also got very heavy, as I'm sure it does with everybody. So laying on your sides, because you can't lay on your back, laying on your sides, it's so weighted going to the side. So having that cushion to hold your belly up was really important for me because it hurt. It was very uncomfortable. But like I said, other than that, my pregnancy I was very lucky. You know, I wasn't sick. I was healthy. The baby was healthy. So at the end of the day, I really can't complain. I can just give you my honest opinion. Towards the end of the third trimester, I was ready for her to come out. I will say I took a trip to Florida as like a baby moon to go visit my parents in Naples. And that was at like 33 weeks. And I was so swollen from that trip and the swelling just never went down. Definitely from flying and then also just being pregnant. So I was definitely very swollen. Maybe one day if I have the courage to show you guys, I'll show you how swollen my feet were. But I was very swollen in the last few weeks leading up to the birth of my daughter. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. I had never been that swollen before. So then come to the point of my birth experience. So my birth experience was wild in the sense that I had no idea what to expect. I barely read any books on it. I just kind of winged it, to be honest. And I do not recommend doing that because I feel I would have been way better prepared, obviously, if I had done some more research, knew what I was doing, but also as a first-time mom, you have no idea what to expect at all. And people can tell you their experience, but it's gonna be so different from yours. So I had no idea what to expect. There was this book that I did read maybe one chapter from, or a couple chapters, which was What to Expect When Expecting. I skipped right over the C-section part because I didn't think I was gonna be having a C-section. I don't think anyone typically does plan for a C-section unless it's, you know, something they prefer or it's recommended for health reasons, or they just wanna know when the baby's coming. There's many different reasons, but I was not planning for that. So I just kind of winged it. So I will say I started contracting on Friday. So she was born on a Sunday. I started contracting, so I thought, on a Friday morning. It was like around 10 a.m. and they were getting a little stronger, or like more consistent, I should say. Didn't hurt at all. It felt more just like cramps coming and going. And I was like, I think I'm going into labor, or I'm starting the whole process. So I called my OBGYN and I told them, and they're like, I will say my first thought was, wow, I'm shocked at how nonchalant they are because they just told me to download any app that could track the contractions. And once it got to 5 minutes apart, then to go to the hospital. I said, oh, that's it? They're like, yep, just track them. I'm like, okay. So I really did feel like I had no direction. So again, there's things I would do differently. I would definitely have like a doula probably, which Brianna will be discussing in her birth story. But I will definitely have someone advocating for me and someone that has the knowledge and experience because I was so inexperienced and had no idea what to expect. So time went on and contractions started getting stronger, and it was maybe around 6 p.m. They were strong and closer together, but they weren't hurting. It was more just a kind of discomfort. So from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., just discomfort. So I was like, all right, let's go to the hospital. I had done my hair. I had done my makeup. I felt good. I looked good. I was ready to go into labor. No experience. So my daughter's father took me to the hospital. We sat in the waiting room. I remember I checked in. I said, hi, I think I'm in labor. And they said, wow, you look great for being in labor. I'm like, thank you. So I took my seat. And of course, they didn't take me for like maybe an hour and a half. And once they called my name, I went in. They checked to see how dilated I was, and I was at 0. So I was not dilated. So what they said was that they didn't know if I was actually in labor. I could be in, early labor, or this could just be maybe some Braxton Hicks. They weren't sure because I was also only 38 weeks and 3 days. So I was early. I left the hospital that night at like 8:30, and to go home, I remember I had my last meal, which was probably from Wendy's, a burger. And at this point, they were just getting really uncomfortable and closer together. So I went home. They did give me some Benadryl, which I don't know why they do that, because it's not like you're going to sleep through the pain. But anyways, I think I took some and I went to bed. I woke up maybe an hour and a half later, so it was around 12 in the morning, and I was in pain. Now I'm really uncomfortable at this point. The contractions are close together. They're still about 4 or 5 minutes apart, but I'm starting to be in a lot of pain. Not a lot of pain by 12 a.m., but like very, very uncomfortable. So I decided to get up. I took a warm bath. I, was in and out of bed trying to feel better. Couldn't sleep because it was getting more and more uncomfortable. Around 3 a.m., I'm in a lot of pain. So I think it feels like a lot of pain. These contractions feel closer together. They feel like 3 to 5 minutes apart, if I can remember correctly, because this was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. So I remember like being up. I went downstairs while my daughter's father slept because I didn't want to wake him up, but I was up the rest of the night. I'm in pain. I think I went in and out of the bathtub, a warm bath, a couple times, or a few times. And then finally at like 6 a.m., I feel like I'm in excruciating pain. So I go to wake the father of my child up, and I said, we need to go to the hospital. In general, naturally, he was exhausted. It's like, are you sure you're listening to what the doctor said, which was making sure they're 5 minutes apart? And at that point, I'm in so much pain. So I'm like, get up. We are going to the doctors. Get up. So I had him drive me at like 6:30 in the morning to the hospital. I'm in a lot of pain. At this point, I think I've cried off my makeup, and I have my hair up, and I'm in like a cardigan and whatever. I'm in just in comfortable clothes. I'm like a little hunched over because I'm in a lot of pain. So I go in. At this point, they take me in, and they're tracking my contractions to see how far apart they are. I'm having pretty strong contractions. They're very close together. I think at this point, they were maybe 3 to 4 minutes apart, and they track it for about 30 minutes to an hour, and they check my cervix, and I'm only like 0.5 centimeters dilated, which was crazy to me because they said I wasn't progressing. They still said they don't know if this is true labor. I'm in so much pain. So that was probably the most nerve-wracking for me, was knowing that I'm in so much pain, and they're telling me this could go on for maybe a couple more weeks, a couple of days. They didn't know. So not knowing freaked me out. And I was like, I can't go like this. I can't do this for 2 weeks. I'll pass out. I can't even eat. Like, I'm in so much pain. So I'm crying. To me, it felt like an awful experience. Also, let me just put out there, I had no idea that it was actually painful because I'm young, I'm 25. I had done no research. I thought, oh, it's 2021. They have the epidural. Like, I'm not going to feel any pain. Well, I was very wrong, because they won't give you the epidural till you're progressing and you hit a certain dilation. So anyways, I'm in there. They send me home. So I get home around 8 a.m., maybe 8:30. At this point, I'm in excruciating pain. They said, try to wait and come back when, you feel like you can't breathe, like it hurts. You can't even talk when the contractions are happening because it hurts so bad. It is about 3 p.m. that I'm like, I've tried walking up and down the driveway. I'm in excruciating pain. I can barely walk up the driveway. I'm in so much pain. I'm like, we need to go in. Like, I need to go. At this point, my hair is a mess. I've been crying because I'm in so much pain. I've tried taking baths. I've tried breathing through it. Like, I also didn't know the best way to breathe because I didn't do any classes. I didn't do any research. I just figured I would just try to focus on my breathing. So at this point, Kyla's father drives us to the hospital. They take me in. I'm crying. I said, I need a doctor now. I'm contracting also maybe every minute or every 30 seconds. Truly, it was that close together, and they were very strong. So they hook me up to a monitor. They take me immediately, and they check my cervix. I'm only 1 centimeter dilated at this point, and I haven't slept since 12 a.m. or really like 11:30 p.m. Friday night. So I'm exhausted. I'm in so much pain, and I'm only 1 centimeter dilated, but I'm contracting every minute, every 30 seconds. So the nurse did feel super bad for me. She told me that she did help open my cervix a little bit. So they kept me there for another hour to check to see if I would progress. The problem was I was 38 weeks and at this point, 4 days. They can't do anything legally to help me move along unless I'm at the 39-week mark on the day. So bless that nurse that secretly, helped me move along, because an hour later my cervix was dilated to 3 centimeters. Still a slow progression, but at least it was progressing. So at that point, they determined I could get the epidural. Naturally, it took about, another 4 hours to actually get into a room. So I don't think I ended up getting the epidural till 8 p.m. that night. So I was in excruciating pain for a very long time. Honestly, where I don't know how women can do this naturally. I mean, I know every experience is different, but I couldn't believe I was only 3 centimeters, but I was apparently, I guess I was 100% effaced, which is like thinning of the cervix. Pretty sure that's what it means. But I was 100% effaced, they said, which is why I was having these contractions so close together, but they couldn't figure out why I was not dilating. So once I got the epidural, I immediately felt like my body could flush back to its natural state, which was great. I felt so relaxed and relieved. I was like, it was like a big, deep breath. Getting that epidural, highly recommend if you can. It was a great pain relief. So once they got me in and on the epidural, I felt so much better. They hooked me up to Pitocin, which is a drug that is supposed to help your contractions move along and get stronger and faster. So that, like I said, that was they didn't hook me up to Pitocin until I was only on Pitocin for 12 hours. So probably the next morning. It was Sunday morning at this point. They hooked me up to Pitocin because I'm not dilating at this point. I haven't moved past 3.5 centimeters when they checked me Sunday morning at like 9 a.m. or maybe it was 8 a.m. And so they put me on some Pitocin. They also helped break my water because my water had not broken yet. When they did that, they also realized that my daughter had gone to the bathroom inside of me. So she did have her first poo inside of me. So that was also, once that happens, there's a high chance of getting an infection if you let them sit in there too long. So that was now a slight concern. But I was healthy, the baby was healthy. So I was on Pitocin. They never put the Pitocin to a high dosage, I believe. She was never in distress. But the thing was, they kept checking me to see if I would dilate. Come about 8 p.m. at night on Sunday night, I was sitting there and they checked me and I'm only at 5.5 centimeters dilated. They didn't want me to continue on the Pitocin much longer. They did give me the option if I wanted to, or if I wanted to go into an emergency C-section. So at that point, I was so exhausted and just so ready to be done with this labor experience because it had been going on since 10 a.m. Friday morning that I was like, let's just do the C-section. So they prepped me for an emergency C-section and she was delivered at 9:22 p.m. on Sunday night. I will say, my C-section experience, I was nervous because it's my first time having this major surgery. They cut through 7 layers in the abdominal section. So I was nervous, but I was just so ready and so exhausted. I was like, let's just do it. So when they completely numb you, you can't move. I felt very exposed, very vulnerable, but I knew I was in good hands. So they move you from the stretcher onto the table where they're going to perform the C-section. They put up the sheet and they have the medicine dripping, so you're not feeling it. Here, now I'm excited to get my daughter out of me, but I'm feeling so nauseous. I'm like sitting there, I'm laying there, I'm like, no way am I gonna throw up right now while they're cutting me open. So I tell them I feel so nauseous. So they give me another drug. They said, we can give you another drug, but it will make you very drowsy and exhausted and tired. I'm like, great, I'm already tired. I just spent the last 50 hours trying, waiting to see my daughter. And now I'm going to be exhausted to see her. But I didn't want to throw up while I'm literally opened up on the table. So they did give me some drug, I don't know what it was called, to help with the nausea from the medication that makes you numb. And from there, I was so exhausted. I was absolutely fighting to keep my eyes open. And I was just thinking, okay, time can only go down from here. They said it's about a 45-minute procedure. Time can only go down. So it was such a weird feeling. It doesn't hurt, but it feels like, you ever get like a sternum rub? That's what it felt like, because they're moving everything. I know it's pretty detailed and gruesome to think about, but they're moving everything. They're getting the baby out. It feels like a sternum rub. So it was a little uncomfortable, but it did not hurt at all. I didn't feel a thing. You just feel a lot of pressure. And then once she was born, I was so relieved. She started crying. She was so healthy. There was nothing wrong with her. She was perfect. And they held her up. They took her to go suction out, her lungs. And I remember seeing her. It was the best moment. But I also was so exhausted, I could barely keep my eyes open. So at that point, my daughter's father, who was in the room with me, of course, and he did great. He had his phone and he was playing music for me while this was all going on. They asked him if he would like to do skin to skin. So he went into a different room with her while they finished basically stitching me back up and putting me back together. I still to this day don't know what they do. I have an idea from what people have told me, but I've never watched on YouTube like a C-section. I don't want to. I think ignorance is bliss for me in some situations. So anyway, my daughter's father went back and did the skin to skin with him while I was getting stitched up. Probably another 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I don't know. My time might be off. But all in all, it was not that long of a procedure, and it went very smooth, no pain, and I would do it again. And I will be requesting it for future births because, yes, even though I was exhausted and it wasn't what I wanted and not what I expected, I honestly probably have like some type of PTSD from those labor pains. They were excruciating, and I'm very scared to have to go through that again. Plus, I think the statistics of, your second baby after a C-section, yes, they do allow you to try vaginally, but I think a lot of them do end up in a C-section. But there have been successful stories of people delivering vaginally after having a first C-section. But I don't know I don't think I want to try that. I think I'd rather just plan a C-section, hope that the baby doesn't start coming early like my daughter did the first time, and just have the C-section. So after the C-section, I was extremely swollen. I remember stepping on the scale. Actually, let me backtrack. After the C-section, I remember they wheeled me into a room. It was like maybe 10, 30, 11 now at this point, and I can't keep my eyes open, to the point where I wanted to hold my baby, but I couldn't. I said, I'm going to drop her. I can't hold her. One thing I did not like was that, yes, I know I needed to be informed on how to breastfeed, but they immediately brought someone down, and this person I did not feel was like empathetic towards the fact that I had just had a C-section. I don't think she knew how long I was in, labor or early labor, whatever you want to call it. And I was just exhausted. I remember her saying, oh, it's fine. I'll just have your daughter's father hold her and show him how to do it. I'm like, I felt very uncomfortable. I didn't like the situation, and I will not be doing that again. I wish that was another moment. I wish I had someone advocating for me and be like, she's almost unconscious. She's not doing this right now. So there's a lot of things now after going through it once that I would do differently. And I think the biggest thing is having someone there to advocate for you, and or truly doing your research and knowing the different options, knowing the different scenarios that can happen, because I think it's really important to be informed so you can have the best experience possible. It's great to have a birth plan, but just know that a lot of the times the birth plan doesn't go to plan, and that's okay. And it's totally normal to feel upset by not having things go to plan. But, I think the number one thing that most moms would agree with is having a healthy baby at the end of the day. But it doesn't make your feelings invalid for feeling the way you do about, your birth and how you felt during it, it's all valid. So that was my birth experience. And it did not traumatize me enough to not want to have kids. I will say it is a miracle how, you're just so astonished by how this little human being, how did this even fit in my belly? And it comes out and it's just this perfect little thing. She was so healthy and it was the best experience, truly. Even though I was so exhausted, I could barely hold her that night. I remember getting up the next day, like maybe it was 6 hours later. I was like, I need to get up. So I had the nurse come. I said, I need to take this catheter out because I need to move around to be able to get to my daughter. I think mom mode and instincts just kicks in immediately. The other thing is you're now responsible for this little human life. And I just felt like I needed to jump into action. So I remember getting up 6 hours later and they're like, wow, usually we have to kind of force, really encourage the moms to get up and start moving out of bed. But I just really felt that that's what I needed to do to take care of my daughter. So that was my experience. And after we left the hospital, I remember stepping on the scale. It was 4 days after I had given birth. At this point, it was Thursday. I was like, okay, let's see how much of the baby weight I've lost. I was the same weight as that day, 4 days post-birth, that I was going into delivering my child. That is how much they pump you with so much fluid, which again, I did not know that. So much fluid when you have a C-section. I was also just swollen with fluid from being pregnant, and your body goes through this tremendous surgery. So, your body is just going through so many changes. But 2 weeks later, I had lost 35 pounds of baby fluid, whatever needed to go down, whatever happens within the woman's body, that all happened to me within 2 weeks. I gained a total of 65 pounds during my pregnancy, 35 pounds of that being baby and water weight and whatever else there was to lose within the first 2 weeks. So yeah, that sums up my experience. I think the biggest thing to take away from my experience is to absolutely have someone there to advocate for you, especially if you're a first-time mom, because it can be a scary experience not knowing what you're doing. Winging it, you can wing it if you want, but I think knowledge can be powerful, and having someone there to really advocate for you is very important because you're in such a vulnerable position and you are so weak from just how you're feeling through your body going through the labor and the contractions and all that, at least in my experience. Like I said, every experience is different, but that is definitely the takeaway that I hope you guys have through this entire experience that I just shared with you. So thanks for listening and can't wait to chat with you guys next week.